Vera, thank you so much for bringing us together tonight. Every time I look at this schedule, and yes, all of you, the team, but to be with our minister here from National Planning, and so young, and I think that's amazing. Yes, this is fantastic. But also to be with my sisters here from the African Union, Amira and Benita, it's wonderful to be with you as always. And of course my colleagues, those that keep me on my feet, because I'm always thinking about how we're going to make our voice louder as women in the UN. So Pramila and Hannah, this is amazing. And then all those that are behind us, because if without you we'd probably fall back. You're always pushing us forward. But this is an amazing evening. I know we got security challenges, but as I was listening to all of you, I was thinking the one thing that came through was the spirit with which you're speaking to all these issues, the passion that you have, the humanness that you bring to the work that you do. That's actually sustainability, because you have something that you wake up to do every day and you just go out and do it. And I think this is a spirit that needs to be shared, that can help change the mindsets that we have of those who say we can't do it. The challenges are so many. And we've been in the last few days, we've been here in Ethiopia, met some really great women, but we were in Djibouti, we were in Somalia, and the only thing we kept coming up was women that were just taking over. They didn't need to be told how to do things. They didn't need to be educated any more than we've seen anywhere. In fact, the ministers that we met in Djibouti are second to none in the world. They can stand on any stage. And I think that's what we need to amplify, what we need to profile of Africa in any space that we can get. People don't know. So we have to create our own narrative. We have to tell our own stories, and we have to get out there and do it as quickly and as loudly as we can. Don't wait to be asked, because we won't be. It's really important for us to do it. I was just sitting here wondering, where's our doctor? Where have you gone? There she is, right there. You know, we were just coming out of Somalia, and I was looking at Benita. She was speaking to about a number of peacekeepers in Somalia, and they were saying to her what they needed, and we've been talking about the hardships of peacekeepers and how we needed to support them. And the two things that they asked for were sanitary pads and headgear, because they have to have that headgear before they put on their uniform. Such a simple ask. And it doesn't cost much. And I was thinking about how in our institutions, the money that we spend, the overheads that we have, and yet this was something that was so small. But I was also thinking about, so this is a business, because there's a lot of them, and what we're asking for is more women peacekeepers, and how can we think about the businesses? Well, I also know that I'm going to Eritrea on Friday, and one of the things that the field visits they asked me to go to was a sanitary pad factory. And I have to say, I wasn't very happy when they told me that, not because it's not important, but because I thought, wow, it's the first thing I go to Eritrea to do, and they'll put me on some tweet or some video, and all I'll be showing is sanitary pads in Africa. And is that not sort of to the side where we have challenges and that we're trying to get over them? What about the side where we're going to go beyond small and medium scale and talk about industry and talk about things that women can do that are only meant for men? But then I put that back as just as important after hearing Binta tell me that this is what we need. So we need all of it, not just some of it, and that was what was really important. Vera set the scene for us, and it is a harsh environment, but it's not impossible. And I have to say, you know, the harsh environment is for men as well. So it really is about the continent and creating an environment in partnership with the men. We're behind, we're fast catching up, we will go past them, but we should not make the same mistake of leaving them behind, because they will create the problems that we just escaped from. And there's nothing worse than anyone idle. It's just that women are far better at knitting together the social fabric, because they know what the implications are of not having that. Usually we're the ones that suffer, the burden is on our shoulders. The threshold being low, we have to increase that, but we have to have the entry points. I was thinking, Vera, where did we make the difference in Nigeria when we decided that agriculture had to have financing for women? And it wasn't just about the land and the land rights, because the women said, you gave us the fertilizer and all the inputs that we needed, you gave us the land, but actually you wouldn't fund the clearing. So, you know, the full value chain and all the links that you need to have in place, and Where was the entry point for that? It was the central banks, the last place that we thought. But once the central bank decided that this was important, then every bank had to have a department who the metrics were of your success were based on how much you lent to women. So we have to get creative about it and really find where are these pathways that we need to put through, and whenever you see women in a position like this, how you use this and inform those talking points that we have when we're sitting talking to a prime minister or to a president as we do that. I think another big thing here, and I heard it because one of our fierce ladies has been doing just that, capacity and literacy, things that we think that we know that we don't know. Whether it is about where your cervix is, or perhaps, the literacy about what on earth is coding. Because we just take things for granted, and these are things that I think that we have to simplify, make more accessible, and in every space that we have, maybe when you land in your village or you go home to your community, you put your phone in the car and you lock it up. And the 2-3 days that you're in that community, don't look at your phone, but just impart the knowledge you have to the community that is in front of you. And maybe the last 6 hours you bring out your phone and you share what's on it with them. But there is so much that we know that we don't share. We take for granted, and we think, well, been there, done that, and you move on. But when you realize how much of a knowledge gap there is between those that are in our communities, that if they had the same opportunities as we have, they would do far better. And it's just by chance, or for those of us who are faithful, by God's will, we were where we were. I hope that we can, really get behind telling the Ethiopian story. It's big, but you've just opened up an opportunity as your Prime Minister leads in the region to bring about peace in a much more meaningful way. We've got the CFTA. It's an acronym that most people don't know. But when they do, they are looking at it to see, well, how do we actually trade within our country, across our borders, instead of what we have been taught to do, which is the export market. No foundations, and we want to get the roof. And we wonder why when the ground shakes a bit, we collapse. So really strengthening and using the domestic markets so that we stand strong. And that is, where was it? You talked about the leather, that you're not going to be the Louis Vuitton or the Gucci. You're going to be yours. Someone is going to have her own stuff, and that's going to be the first. And I think that's doable if we can do that from the markets that we have here. You've got an even easier leapfrog opportunity with technology, because now everything can be done on the internet. Before we used to, to search for your business partners was something else. But I see now how young people just connect on the internet. What they do need is an enabling environment and places where they can check out, if I'm doing business with my colleague in Rwanda, who in Rwanda can tell me whether it's okay and that I'm not going to lose my investments by going over there. I think we have to challenge our governments, that those offices that they have in the embassies where it's trade, that they finally should start working. And then we're really checking out those places for us so that we have a place to go where there is some credibility and there is a fallback. So, dream, I've been hearing the dream and the spirit in this room, and I think it is amazing. I sat with heads of state, and this is difficult, in Niger. And we had this wonderful dinner. What was more exceptional was that second lady, the second ladies in Africa, in the same house. And she was amazing. I mean, both of them amazing. One's a politician and the other one is a doctor. Yeah, first and second ladies were allowed. But it is, what she did was she brought a fashion show to the African Union meeting. And everybody was wondering, what is this about? And the older men that were at the high table with me, and all this fashion started coming out. It was exceptional. It was unbelievable. You could be in Paris. And so they were saying, no, but we don't want our women to wear these clothes. No, the skirt is too short. Well, she's not wearing anything. She's naked. I said, look, we're not dressing our women. We're dressing the ones in Paris. We can export them. What's your problem? That's not to say we don't want to dress our women in short skirts, but it was to say to them, that's not what this is about. It's about business, it's about a market, and we are equal to those that are doing this on catwalks in Paris, and so that's our destination, that they buy our goods there that are as good as theirs, and we don't have to talk about Gucci, we can talk about our own. So again, we have to talk to people in a way that we make jest of it, because sometimes I think it's the tensions in us trying to get our space in a man's world about you and us, but it really needs to be about we. And you have a better chance at doing that because young people with your counterparts, your men, are doing far better than we've done. And it's great to hear you talk about your brother and your brother's here supporting you, and it's amazing. I think last, let me just talk about experiences that you share. It's someone just talked about being a single parent, the mental health issues that are amongst young people who are. We're experiencing that in the UN. We never knew when the DSG said, I want to know about the well-being of the staff and what we're doing about that. And mental health is a really big challenge, but it's also a stigma attached to it. And I think that if young people, as you have, started talking about mental health, maybe we can address that, because I think a lot of it is about our societies and the support we give each other. You came into this room and you felt the support. When I had my children, I have 6 children and 1 grandchild, and when I had those children, I have to tell you, I wouldn't have had so many if I was living in Europe. I had them because I was in Nigeria. And the minute you have the baby, somebody takes it, and the only thing you have to do is feed it. They bath you, they feed you, it's incredible. And this luxury to be in Africa when you have that kind of support. Yet we are leaving it behind as some cultural part of us that we don't want to own. And yet, that for me was the shock absorber that I know that in my community, we very, very rarely hear about our postnatal depression. Because there is an auntie, a sister, or somebody to take care of it. And when my sister decided that she couldn't do what I did by having a baby in Nigeria, and she went to Europe to do it, and she said, well, you have to come because I'm going to have a baby. So in typical African form, you go and to your sister. And so it was not funny, but it was funny. She looked at me and said, I can never have a baby in that Nigerian hospital. I mean, you just want to kill yourself and your baby. And it's true, it was pretty bad. When I finished having, I delivered the baby, and they said, okay, go into the private room, because I of course, we're elite. I got in, I said, no, I don't want to be in a room by myself, because I don't know, nobody will see me, nobody will talk to me, I need to talk to people. So they put me in a big ward with everybody else, and I sat on the bed with the baby, and the mosquito said, welcome. So I understood what she was saying, but she went to have her baby. She went to one of the best hospitals in London. When she came out with her infection, because she made the mistake of sitting in the bath, and she got one of those, infections that, antibiotics do nothing. They are so resistant. It was the most awful experience. Now, she had nobody except me. So who would have been looking after her with her infection and her baby? We were in a hurry to go back to Nigeria, because it was really, really, we knew someone was going to take care of us. And share the experience and do the thing. So not to let go of the cultures that we have that make us strong in Africa. Our fabric is strong. It is getting weaker because we are challenged by poverty, we're challenged by corruption, we're challenged by many, many things that we see today coming across the border with conflict and refugees and climate action. So dig deep. I think that we need to reconnect with who and what we are to make that happen. Young people are coming back to Africa. We educate them, and many of them, no, stay back, you need to get some experience, and Africa's really not going to give you the opportunity. It's not an enabling environment, and so it's really big suffering. They're right, but who's going to fix your country if not you? You fixing other people's country, and you're just leaving ours to go down the tube. So, I think each of us have a responsibility to bring back our children. I worked hard to educate my kids, but I didn't want them to work for some other country. I haven't worked for another country, except now that I'm at the UN. But, condition. So my kids, the condition was, you have to come home. And everybody was saying, you're crazy. Why are you asking your children to come home? But I found that what happened when they came home, they found the opportunities with the education they've had. And each one is different. Each one has done something that is really quite amazing. From one that has decided to be a teacher, another one that's a filmmaker. And to show people through her own eyes what she sees, whether it is Boko Haram or it is tribal marks or something like that. But she went through a couple of years now, many miscarriages, and she lost quite a lot. She almost died a couple of times. But she came out of that saying, you know, I realized that I had nobody to speak to. Nobody talks about these things because culturally it's taboo to do that. And dealing with, what did she say the other day, dealing with the aunties that come along and they touch your stomach and say, are you not pregnant yet? But they don't know what she's gone through. And so she did, in 6 days, she turned around and she set up a foundation. Because she had technology, because she had friends, and because she was back at home in Africa and she could do it. And when she did that, she had people calling her from Namibia to say, you know, can you help me? This is what I'm going through. So again, I just think that young people in Africa, this is your time. What we have to do is not hand over the baton. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is move behind you so that every time you look as though you're going to tip back, we push you forward. We have the experience. We have the exposure. You've got to make your own mistakes, but that's okay. And not to hand the baton, because that means that we leave you. And we're not going to leave you. Because, at least for the doctor, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I am not grown up yet. So thank you very much, everyone. And by now, the wrapper should be ready. No, we don't give up.